Let's read this first story from timcast.com. Senator Feinstein introduces bill to require proof of vaccine, negative test, or documentation of recovery for domestic flights. The U.S. Air Travel Public Safety Act would order the Department of Health and Human Services and the Federal Aviation Administration to develop national vaccination verification standards and procedures. The text of the act says that it is necessary to reduce passenger, crew member, and airport personnel risk of exposure to COVID-19, decrease the risk of transmission of COVID-19 on board aircraft in the United States and to United States destination communities through air travel, and protect children and other vulnerable individuals by preventing further spread of COVID-19 in the U.S. Under the bill, a passenger would have to provide the air carrier with documentation demonstrating they are fully vaccinated, provide proof of negative pre-departure, or alternatively, written or electronic documentation of recovery from COVID-19 after previous infection. All right, well, that last part, at least I can give some respect to, but across the board, I just don't have much respect for this at all.
I think it doesn't go far enough. Let's put a scale like there when you check in. Let's just check people's BMI. If it's too high, you can't get on the plane. I mean, it's about saving lives.
Actually, you're right.
That's a great point.
So there's actually an issue with overweight people on airplanes, because when an individual comes on a plane, they actually there's a load manifest. I used to work with these, and you write down average weight of cargo. Depending on how many people are in the plane and how much luggage in the plane, the pilot has to behave differently and move people. Sometimes there were issues where there was like very little luggage, and they're like, okay, that's going to displace the weight and put all the weight in the front. So they'd actually ask people to move to even out that weight, things like that. So yes, people would complain because they'd be like, sir, you're overweight. You have to occupy 2 seats because we can't have the displacement on the plane this way. People didn't like it.
So what are they allowed to, like, if someone has the flu, can they not fly? You can fly sick. You always have been able to.
It's kind of a dick move, but I guess some people, are in a bind, and they can kick you off the plane for any reason. They're plane, private company.
Well, they're not. I mean, that's what we're seeing is they're not, right? I mean, there's an example of companies that aren't really private companies. It's airlines, right? They're not. The fact that the government can do this is an example of how they're not remotely private companies. If we had private flight, think about how awesome it would be. It'd be like, and not that Megabus is like the most awesome experience. It'd be way closer to Megabus. There'd be, tens of thousands of airports. You'd you'd drive out to the middle of nowhere. You'd get on the plane 20 minutes after you got there. You wouldn't have to show ID to anyone. There'd be all kinds of flights. It would be way more decentralized.
Oh, yeah.
Some random pilot can, rent a plane and fly you places. That's what a free market in air flight would look like. We don't have anything that remotely looks like a free market.
You'd also be standing up. So they've actually experimented with this.
Yeah.
There are seats where you're slightly sitting down. They're like straight up, and they have a little like hump on it where you can lean against, but you stand the whole time. And they're like, we can get way more people on the planes if we do this.
Well, I mean, give you know what? Like, that can feel awkward and distant, but just give people choices. That's the point. Like, if people want to fly on a flight where everyone is vaccinated, let the market provide that service. If people don't give a shit, let the market provide that service. When the government is stepping in and saying this is the way that planes have to run, that's not a choice. That's the government coming in, the gun in the room, and saying you have to operate your airlines this way.
You could do a roller coaster flight as long as it's safe, where every so often the plane just drops a little bit and then keeps going and drops, as long as it's safe. And then you get the roller coaster feel on your flight.
That's perfect.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, if people, why don't they do vax and no vax flights?
Sure.
But it's public health.
This is the thing.
We don't want to spread COVID.
Travel should not be a privatized, in my opinion. The roads, the railroads, the planes should not be privatized because someone can be like, no, you can't travel because I don't like you. I don't like what your dad said to me 20 years ago. You're never allowed. And then he's like, all his friends that own all the other companies are like, yeah, okay, him and his family forever.
That's
They're
a
never
problem
allowed.
of monopolization.
Yeah.
Which is maybe an argument for roads, but I don't think it's an argument against planes, because planes, it's so easy. There's so much space. We're not running out of space. There's no monopoly on it. There's no reason there shouldn't be 100,000 possible ways that you could fly. Like, think about how many people are Uber drivers. Like, flying would look like Uber, much closer to Uber. Not necessarily where you're getting on your plane in 10 minutes, but it would look much closer to that, where you have this vast variety of providers. It's heavily centralized in a small number of companies because the federal government made it work that way.
Well, they actually are doing like Uber for planes. There's companies where it's a private plane, and then you can you basically say, here's where I'm going to this place.
The FAA shut some of these down, by the way.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. It's a story to check out. There were some successful companies doing this. The FAA came in and said that's illegal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
Well, that's the government, I guess.